Hello and a very warm welcome to the airBaltic Pilot Academy Open Day in an online version this time, here from the headquarters of airBaltic in Riga. My name is Gerhard Ramke, I'm the chief pilot of the airline, and I'll take you through a couple of slides on a PowerPoint presentation which we've brought along. And then there's some interaction there as well. I'll get to that in just a second. Via Slido, you have already received the password. You can log in there and then basically post your question. I do recommend that you maybe listen first to the details I have in that presentation, and then there's surely some questions resulting out of that. The reason that we put the login forward at an early stage now is that every now and then we have a question in between for you, so that we can actually see where you're from, what your thoughts are on specific things and so forth. And then at the very end, once we've completed the PowerPoint presentation, we do have some questions and answers where you can post your question and I'll try to answer them as good as I can. Maybe just a word on top of that. I am the chief pilot of the airline, which means that I surely know what the Pilot Academy actually does and how they do it, and I've got some assistance here as well. Nonetheless, there might be the one or other question where I might not have the exact detail, but I would tell you then accordingly in the relation to your answer. Let's get to it and have a short look who we actually are. So people at airBaltic, it says, and with the people, of course, comes the equipment as well. You surely know that we fly the most modern single-aisle aircraft which is available on the market. It is the youngest development, and with that, the most modern and the most green aircraft which is available on the market. It is the Airbus A220, and we fly it in the 300 version, which is the longer, the stretched one of the two available. We currently have 44 of these aircraft, and and there are two joining us throughout the remaining 2 months of this year. So that will end the year with 46 aircraft in total, and then we do expect another 4 next year, which completes our initial order of 50 aircraft of this type. I will mention here as well, as our CEO Martin Gauss has put that out as well, that we will continue growing after that. So we have set up intentions to make the airline grow to a much bigger size than just 50 aircraft. Employees, it says here more than 2,491. We are constantly growing. We are increasing our route network, our routes itself with aircraft coming in. We need more pilots. And of course, then there is additional administrative stuff behind the scenes and many others, technicians and so forth, who need to accompany the growth as well. So with that, we are growing, and we actually expect very, very shortly the 2,500th employee to join the company, and we will make that a big deal in public and announce it accordingly. Of these nearly 2,500 people, we've got 448 pilots by today. And as you can see then on the right side, where we divide the numbers into first officers and captains, you can see there that we've got 235 first officers versus 213 captains. So that is an uneven number. You would normally have them split in half because you have one first officer and one captain in the flight deck. Nonetheless, we are a little bit behind with upgrading the captains accordingly. So you will see, in theory, the numbers of first officers decrease because they're being upgraded to captains then. Very remarkable here is that of these 235 first officers, 95 Pilot Academy graduates are in this first officer group. And that is something which we are incredibly proud of. It shows very well that the whole system of us running a flight school, a pilot academy, works very, very well. These 95 young people have shown to us that they have not only successfully finished their pilot education, but they have integrated into our pilot corps in a fantastic way. And we're very, very happy to have them amongst us. 5 years roughly it takes them to become a captain. That is, for many airlines, a very, very short period of time. It comes, of course, or it goes along with us growing. The faster we grow, the more is the need of upgrading people as well. We've got actually a not too fast pace in the growth, which gives us, of course, the opportunity to have those people, those first officers who upgrade to captains, then have the suitable experience and, of course, naturally, all of the training and support on development which it actually takes to become a captain. 32 nationalities, that is remarkable as well. It shows what kind of vibrant and modern, multicultural, multilingual airline we actually really are. With 32 different nationalities, naturally you have to focus on one specific language. That is English, exactly in the way I hold my presentation. I'm actually from Germany, and I have to get along here with all the colleagues of these different nationalities, different nations. I have to get along in English. That is our company language. And in a modern airline, that would be anyhow the cockpit language, which pilots would speak amongst each other, even if they are actually out of the same country. Here we then get started actually with a Slido. You will see that there is a poll posted there, and the question here is, which country are you actually from? Which we find interesting to see what our audience actually has. So I'll give you a second time and you can post your nationality just to see who actually has joined us here now in this online session. Spain, the Netherlands, very typically represented countries here in our pilot group. France, from Russia, Latvia, Poland, Finland. Okay, what gets added here? And that is where we then see that several people have posted from one specific country, Finland, Spain. Yeah, there's surely more than just one Latvian here online. Lithuania, yeah, one of the Baltic states here. Cool, I'll take a sip of water if you guys don't mind in that time, and I'll give you another minute. Okay, not sure if there's still some movement. I see somebody typing there from Uganda. Okay, that's pretty far away. Good, fine. This gives us a great picture, and you can see already here that there are many different nationalities actually represented. I'm very sure that not everybody has really put their country forward. Brazil, I see here as well, pretty exotic, great. Interesting that it would reach you in Brazil. Find that really fascinating and really nice. Good to see this. Diversity is something which we really take serious in any way. When it comes to gender, the pilot job is surely not like in old times where it was thought that people could only fly an aircraft if they got real muscle power and if they're a real man. That's long over. We've got a lot of females in our pilot community, and we're absolutely proud of it. And we, of course, want to see more join. Now, here we move forward then a little bit and look into still who we are and what we have, and this is about our fleet which we fly, the Airbus A220-300. You've surely seen a lot of videos which we've posted out there. We're very, very active on social media, and it is always in some way about our modern aircraft which we use to transport passengers. The passengers like it. It is modern, it is quiet, it is a lot cleaner in the sense of that it produces less emissions than standard or older aircraft which you would know, and that is of course specifically when it comes to climate discussions and so forth. It's a very, very important point. We have about 150 seats on the aircraft, slightly less. That is just simply due to our cabin configuration. It says there 148, 149. The difference is that we've got slight differences in the cabin configuration when it comes to a big wardrobe and so forth. So some have 148, some others have 149. The commercial range is about 6,200 kilometers, which is really far, and we make use of that. We fly into the northern parts of Africa. We have long range for a single aisle medium range aircraft. So that is something which we find not only attractive, we put that forward to our passengers and offer them these flights which other airlines would not be able to do like this. The fuel consumption is also remarkable. It looks like a massive amount, which it is. Nonetheless, you must imagine that we fly 150 passengers plus cargo and their bags for this amount of fuel which we burn. So it is a lot less than a classic passenger aircraft of the same size. Interesting and maybe remarkable is on the right side, these little columns there, the graph which we have put in, because it shows how we actually went into the pandemic and what happened then thereafter. So we had 3 different fleets at that time. We had a turboprop fleet of 12 Q400s which we operated, and we still had 4 Boeing 737s left. And then at that time already 22 A220s. And we decided to put the other 2 fleet on ground and really move forward, modernize the fleet, make sure that fuel consumption is at a suitable level when it comes to climate issues and so forth. Went for an all A220 fleet, and here we are growing up to initially 50 aircraft, and then continuous growth is the intention straight thereafter. Then we come to the Pilot Academy, and that is surely one of the most interesting points you have actually joined for. So it says there, the perfect solution, and it is, and I'll tell you a little bit why. If you are interested to become a pilot, and that's all what the Pilot Academy is about, then one of the major points here is that we offer, as an airline, with our connected Pilot Academy, the integrated ATPL, and that up to airline standards. And it says here within 24 months. Now that is of course relative in the sense of that we are very much dependent on weather. You will find people who go through it in 18 months. That is really the minimum time. And you will find others where that doesn't work too well for scheduling purposes, weather purposes, and it might take up to 24 months. So somewhere in between that is the standard time in which people achieve that ATPL, the Airline Transport Pilot License. Modern and newest training aircraft and simulators. So it's not only that we as an airline have the most modern equipment, the Pilot Academy has the same. They've got a very, very modern fleet of Diamond aircraft. Single engine and twin engine aircraft. And that of course naturally goes then for the simulator equipment which we use as well. Best practice and quality from airline instructors. Now, because this Pilot Academy is connected to the airline, we take pride in being able to provide airline relative education when it comes to the pilot license. Nearly all of our instructors in the Pilot Academy are airline pilots with us. So they have the daily routine of knowing how to fly and how to fly in an airline and have not only the best practices, but the knowledge as well, how that actually really works then in daily life, which they pass on to the students in the Pilot Academy. So it will not be that you just get educated by a commercial entity which has the interest of putting out as many students as they, or running through as many students as they potentially can. But here it is the interest, which we as an airline of course have, is to qualify you as an airline pilot and be able to employ you within our organization. And with that we have a big interest in ensuring that the instructors have that extra which they are able to deliver to you because they work in an airline, and specifically in ours. Then pilot work offer to airBaltic after successful selection. Now, when you come in and you're interested in getting your education with the Pilot Academy, of course you don't get employed as a pilot because you are not a pilot yet. But already in that selection process, we make sure that you have certain things which it would take, even though you don't have any education on piloting an aircraft, but certain things which it would take to be able to employ you as a pilot later on. And I'll get to that in 1 or 2 slides, don't know exactly where that is. But that is already where that selection towards an airline pilot actually really starts. It's me, for example, participating in this selection process as well, simply for the reason that we want to know who's actually interested in joining us later on as a pilot once they have run successfully through the educational program. But at the same time, there are certain steps where you have to demonstrate that you are a suitable candidate for the airline later on. So during your educational process in the Pilot Academy, as well then when you pass certain stages in that educational program. Minimum requirements for our program cadets. So you need to be above 18 and you have to finish your school period with being a high school graduate and so forth. There are a couple of others mentioned there. I'll pick up a few of them, and one of them is that your health needs to meet a Class 1 aviation medical certificate. So you can wait and you can apply with us, and then you'll have to check your health anyhow. A pilot has very specific health requirements. We need to do our examinations once per year and demonstrate that we fulfill certain requirements when it comes to our health. Now, if you would not be able to fulfill that at this stage, then of course it doesn't make any sense to even start the pilot education, because you might spend a lot of money on this, but you might not be able to work because you never get a Class 1 medical certificate. So here we definitely advise you to go at an early stage to a flight medical examination and just check that you are able to fulfill this Class 1. Nevertheless, you don't really have to take care of that now, because we will provide additional information then once you get in contact with us. And here comes another question for you actually. What are the personality traits of a perfect pilot? Now, maybe a little comment on that as well. The perfect pilot doesn't exist. We all have our traits, and we'd like to know from you, actually, what do you think they are to make it a perfect pilot? So I'll just put that down. I'll take a sip of water. That will be interesting to see what you come up with. Communicative, yes, surely. Working well under stress, yes. Resilience. Leadership. If you want to become a captain one day, and even as a first officer, yes, leadership is required. That seems to be one of the points which stands out. Yeah, cool, great, humble, like that as well. Yeah, that is surely. So anything I read here, there's surely nothing wrong with any of these. Lifelong learning, yes. I'll pick a couple of them up, and I think we'll just close it here now so that the picture doesn't shift and change. Therefore, the screen is a little bit too far away for me to actually follow that then when you guys move the wording there. I'll pick a couple of these up. A good attitude. Of course, that is necessary as well. You work in a two-man environment. So two-man, it might be two women, so that doesn't matter. I'll just say it like this. Where two pilots need to work together and they need to have anything else than putting up a certain stress level just simply because they don't get along with each other or they have a different opinion on a private subject or something like that. That cannot be. The environment there needs to just simply be as professional as it can be. Somebody wrote funny. Well, yeah. Not sure what to say there. But good attitude, taking responsibility, stress resistant, consistency, dedication, healthy lifestyle. Definitely, if you want to end your career or continue your career in a certain way, and you've done a huge investment once you work as a pilot, then yes, you do want to have a healthy lifestyle. Punctual, yes, of course. Communicative. Communication is everything in aviation. You need to let the other one understand what your intentions are, what you do, what you intend to do, what you see, what you recognize, how you want to get along with it, and so on. Communication is the thing. Being humble, yeah, that stands out here as well, is surely something which we need to be as well in a certain way. The lifestyle of a pilot is not always what we might think at first glance. Shiny, we travel a lot, we sit in the sun at the beach, of course in between two flights or something like that. It is a hard-working environment where you need to change location frequently and you might not always be in the place where you actually like to be. Yeah, there is a lot to that. Cool. Nonetheless, we're still talking about the Pilot Academy and you potentially being interested to become a pilot. And with that, you have to run through a selection process. Here you can see two numbers on the cone there, 200 and then at the little spout, 12. So if we look at the picture of about 200 applicants coming in, we would basically then have 12 in the very final stage who would pass that selection. And then it depends partly on them if they want to accept the offer. I'll break that down a little bit and see what we actually have to run through when we apply here. So initially 200 applications we look at these applications and see if they're actually valid. If somebody is 17 and sends in their application, then we can't recognize that, unfortunately, for the process. And there are other factors there as well which we would have to take out certain people. Then it comes down to how good have you actually been at school in certain things. English, absolutely mandatory. You need to have good command of English. Math, physics, you need to understand actually how certain things work or be able to understand how certain things work. You need to be able to calculate and you need to have certain calculations made in your head very quickly while you go flying to reason what you actually really have. Do I have enough fuel to get somewhere? I have to wait here for a while because there's a thunderstorm around the airport. Can I afford that with my fuel and so forth? Of course, modern flight computers will actually tell you everything. Nonetheless, the situational awareness really requires that you are able to do certain calculations in your head. General mental abilities are tested, of course, as well, and they definitely have to be there to a good level. The same as you have to pass the psychological assessment, and during the psychological assessment, it will, of course, the traits which you just mentioned there, they will be checked, of course, for as well. How is it when you are criticized, when somebody tells you you have done something wrong? Are you able to deal with it? Or do you get really angry? It's an accusation, that's not true, and so forth, where potentially a conflict breaks out. We can't afford that in a flight deck. So that would be a personality trait which would not let you move forward. So that will be all dealt with in a psychological assessment. And then the final interview and financing support, that is where basically this 5%, 6% of people come out then and would potentially be offered then a seat in the Pilot Academy. Yeah? Breaks down the numbers there a little bit. Another very, very important thing to consider is what does it actually cost and for whom? Who's going to take which part? What do I need to recognize? Where am I in all of this? Now you can see on the left side here, it says that Pilot Academy assessment, that's where it starts. You are one of the 6% of people who go through, and we would offer this to you. Then you would have to initially pay. It is you who has to do a down payment, so a self-funded installment, as it says there, of 15,000 euros. Quick comment maybe on that. It has changed over the time. We had a while ago, we had 15,000. We had to put the price up to 25. We have then decided, okay, we'll take a part of that and we'll put the price down back to 15,000. And the rest is on us, so to say. So that's the initial installment. And here, of course, it's then the question, what do you actually get for that? So first of all, you get a seat in the Pilot Academy, which means that you've got the opportunity to make the most out of it in becoming a pilot. It includes the entire theory of the airline transport pilot license, plus 45 flight hours, and that will bring you up to a level of a PPL, the private pilot license, if you know what that is. It will not be a private pilot license because we don't have modular education. It is an integrated, so you only get a license at the very end. But you could go with this and basically ensure that you are able to get yourself a private pilot license if you don't want to continue, in example. Now, when that phase with the entire theory and the 45 hours is over, that will take you roughly 9 months. At the end of these 9 months, you come in for a performance review, and we will have a look in how have you actually been getting along. How did you study? Did you really take it serious actually? Were you really engaged, motivated, and did you put in what it really needs to achieve good results? Did you pass all your tests? How have you actually been getting along in that environment, and so forth? And then we will decide if the results are good, which they normally are. It is very, very seldom that somebody actually drops out in that phase. But if that goes all well, then we will offer you to take you into the loan program of the company. And it says their airline provided loan. That is a phase where we will offer you to have the remaining amount, which is summed up there. It amounts up to about 64,000 on the pure loan for the education. We will offer you to integrate you into this loan program. That means that we will employ you. We will still not employ you as a pilot because you are not a pilot yet, or not an airline pilot at that point. But to be able to provide you with a loan, we have to employ you because we are not a bank. We cannot just finance something. We can only do that for our employees. So we would employ you in an area which is suitable towards your educational level, towards what you've done before, where you have potentially some expertise or experience. That might be then in the technical department, it might be as a flight attendant, it might be as a flight coordinator down at the ramp where the aircraft gets serviced and prepared for their flights. It could be anything, so that would be rather on an individual basis. It needs to be mentioned here that there's a 10% fee. It is a loan commission which comes on top. You don't have to take the 64,000. That would be the price. Basically, it could be that you want to finance a certain part of that yourself, and that would not be subject. Then, of course, the loan fee would be, of course, going down accordingly. It is basically 10% of the loan which we require as an administrative fee. Yeah. And then This finances your educational program, which I mentioned before already, is somewhere between 18 and 24 months. And it comes down to a cost, and you'll see that in the lower part of that slide, roughly nearly 80,000 euros. That is still a very good price, because we as an airline have, of course, an interest in that you come flying with us. We have assessed you already. We have recognized that you are a valuable asset to the company and a potential pilot in the future. And with that, we basically do our part then as well to make this a suitable program. The airBaltic loan program, there are a couple of points which I might have mentioned here already, but we'll run through these here as well. So the performance review will take place after successful passing of all ADVL theory exams. That's the point of the 9 months, where we actually have a look, who are you? We had an impression already during the assessment when you wanted to join the Pilot Academy. Now we want to see how has this been going for you during the 9 months. Were you able really to achieve what you needed to achieve? Did you do it in a way we expect you to do it? And so forth. Training work schedule will be divided 50-50. Now I told you that you will be then employed with the company. And that employment goes for the loan program. At the same time, as we employ you in a specific job field, you will be working. You will be working 50% of that schedule, so half of the time, and the other half of time you go out flying. The schedule will, of course, recognize a little bit if we've got over a whole month bad weather, then we recognize that in a certain way. But it will still stay a 50-50 intended schedule there on the work. You will be paid for that work which you do, and you will not be paid at a lower rate than anybody else working exactly in the same job. You get the job's specific payment for what you do. So it has nothing to do that we take advantage on lower paid workforce or something like that. The payment is exactly the same. Position will be selected based on your previous education and skills, and I mentioned that already before. The loan repayment starts after the initial line check, and that is within the airline. So once you have then completed all of your educational program and you get employed with the airline, then there is again learning, studying. You need to do a type rating on the Airbus A220-300, and then you run through a line training program. Once you have completed that with the initial line check, and then first of all you get a higher salary because you go into these first officer salary levels, and that is where you start paying back the loan. Starting dates, I'll mention that first because I always again and again find that so fascinating. On the right side you see this picture here, and it is from a graduation party, graduation event, where people have achieved exactly what you are interested in now. They have received the airline transport pilot license and have graduated out of this Pilot Academy program. And it is just such an amazing moment when these young people really achieve what they have signed up for, studied hard over these 18 to 20 months or up to 24 months even. And then finally they're done and they get into the airline. Every time, really a very, very nice moment. Starting dates. So now for this year, we still got one group starting. That's next week. That group is naturally full. And then we've got for now 3, most probably, there's a 4th group missing there towards the end of the year. Don't have an exact date. So with that, that's where 3 additional groups will be starting up. You can see that on the numbers there, that we are coming up to in September 24 to PA group 23. That's how far we are into the program since the launch. And then the airline pilot standard from day one. I mentioned that already before, that is something which we are unique at. There are not too many airlines providing exactly this, and definitely not an airline of our size. The airline standards, I mentioned as well that the instructors are nearly all airline pilots with us. So they have that daily experience and routine of exactly what you need to be at one day recognized as an airline pilot with us. You can see here in the picture already, you see the instructor, you see that he's got 3 stripes on his shoulder. He's a first officer with us. Doesn't necessarily need to be a captain. We've got very, very good first officers instructing on certain subjects, even as flight instructors themselves. And then you see the students sitting there. They all wear their uniforms. From day one, you are joining an airline environment, which means we wear a suitable uniform. It is something, of course, which you will be judged at as well. How do you wear your uniform? There are certain rules to how to wear a uniform. You can't just wear pink socks with your black shoes and your black trousers. You have to wear black socks with them as well. All of that. Is your shirt ironed? How do you come to work? Do you look scruffy? Do you have your tie hanging on 9:30? Or is it set up in a suitable way? The way we would like to see you represent the airline at some point when you go out flying as an airline pilot. That is from day one. You start up with an airline if you go into our pilot academy. And that is the way we treat you, and that's the way we want you to treat the whole environment and your appearance, of course, as well. Cool. What do you have to do in that time? Airline pilot standards, that is what you basically get put through on this integrated ATPL course. And here it breaks down a little bit the hours and the proportion which this would really include. So you see the first one in green there, classroom study, computer-based training, and self-study. Even the computer-based training is in a certain way, it is self-study. You do that with CBTs, with certain online modules which you have to run through. And then of course there's always an instructor available to ask questions to, who can help out and who gives certain advice on certain things. But you see that the amount of hours where you just need to sit down and study hard is immense. Typical question which we normally get, what's actually the proportion on a day? How much do you need to study? Now, we'd all like to hang out in the sun on a nice summer or go to the beach or something like that. But if you compare it to studies at the university, this is much more intense. You have a certain self-pace program at the university. You don't have that here. You need to study from the early morning to the late evening, and then even more at some other point. And when you think you've got a day off, you probably discover that, oh, actually I don't really know exactly how this works. I better read up on it. If you want to become an airline pilot, you must recognize that it is a lifelong study. The manufacturer of the aircraft releases new information every now and then, and that frequently over the year. You have to study up on that. There are changes on procedures, there are changes on rules and regulations, and you constantly need to update yourself on these things. You might change from one aircraft type to another, or you will surely do that several times during your career. You need to study on this new aircraft type with all of those specifics. It is a lifelong learning process. So you just have to be aware that that will come with it, wanting to become an airline pilot. Here comes the flying part. Single engine piston training flights on the Diamond, as well as then on the FNPT, where you would be training certain procedures. And so it's a procedure trainer, basically. It's something like a flight simulator. And then we've got the multi-engine piston training flights, which of course have a smaller amount. The multi-engine, so the twin-engine Diamond, is of course significantly more expensive. There's not a big requirement to train more than or in the same amount as on a single engine piston. It is that you learn about how does that actually go, having instead of one engine centered, having two engines now out on the wings. What happens if one fails? What do I need to do? How can I compensate? What are the things to think about there? Yeah, that surely is the most fun part there with the flying. Upset recovery training is also something which we do. It is essential that our pilots get to understand what actually happens if I get into a situation with my aircraft where I don't want to be. So I don't want to call that aerobatics, but it goes a little bit into that approach that aerobatics is something where you control what you actually want to do. You want to fly a looping and so on. So which we would never do with passengers, but in a smaller aircraft you can do that just for fun purposes, for yourself, under certain rules. Here it is about something has happened, be it turbulence, whatever, nothing else comes to my mind, where you are in a situation where that aircraft, where you would normally not be, but where you now need to understand, how can I get out of it? That is what we do practically as well. So we put you in an aircraft with an instructor naturally, and you'll learn exactly how to recognize and counteract these situations. And then is the MCC course. And the MCC course, MCC stands for multi-crew. The MCC course is first of all done, that's the first step into the airline. It is basically done first of all on our A220 simulator. So you do the multi-crew course in that professional environment of the A220 flight environment, because it's on our full flight simulator in the training center, which we have here in Riga too. Thereafter, you would be done with all of these courses, and then it goes basically to the employment in the airline, where then, of course, the studying continues. You need to understand the procedures in the airline which we use to fly the A220. At the same time, you need to do a type rating. So in a car, a lot of you might know what a type rating is. Nevertheless, I'll explain it very quickly. In the car, you can drive now the VW Golf, and then you drive the BMW of the friend. There is no differences, the blinkers at the same point and so forth, little switch differences and so on, which you just get used to. There's no requirement for you to train on it. Very different on an aircraft. On an aircraft, you need to be trained on that specific aircraft, and then in theory, you can't fly anything else. So you can fly two different aircraft, but even that is pretty demanding. You need to know all of the restrictions, all of the limitations, all of the specifics on systems, on you name it, to drive this specific aircraft, because they're not all the same. And that is why there's a so-called type rating done on that specific aircraft, in our case, the Airbus A220. Oops, that went, I think, one, where are we here now? Yes, one back, yeah. Forward, I'm messing it up here. There we are, here we are. We don't want to skip these slides. airBaltic Pilot Academy Diamond Fleet. So we have 10 aircraft at the moment. That's quite a considerable fleet. And they are all young and fresh out of the factory. We took them over from Diamond, all brand new, factory new. And there you can see the development out of the fleet since the Pilot Academy has been founded in 2018. Operational basis you see there as well. So flying out of Riga is of course not what we do too often, simply for the reason that there's a lot of airliner traffic here. We can't put the small aircraft in. First of all, they would not be able to fly enough here in Riga. Second of all, they just disrupt the traffic flow in a certain way. So most of the flying is being done out of Liepāja. That's a small or smaller city here in Latvia on the coastline in the west. And then there's Ventspils, which is a little bit more north of Liepāja, which we use as well. They are not so busy, so ideal for us to do the flying for the Pilot Academy there. Airline pilot demand and student graduates. So a lot of you ask, of course, or we get this question pretty frequent, so how can you ensure actually by having these constant courses that you actually are able to offer the graduates out of these courses then a job, which we actually promise. Now, first of all, we are, of course, developing our own fleet significantly. Here it tells you that in 24 and 25 we will reach the 500 pilot mark and keep it there as well. I've told you before already that we have not only intentions, our plans are to continue the growth, and we need more pilots, which we knew before. We crew every aircraft with about 10 pilots, 5 captains, 5 first officers. That's a very rough figure, but that's basically what we do. So you can count up, if we go to 80 aircraft, what the amount of pilots would be. Cadets joining the airline, and there you see actually an interesting curve in the sense of that in 2020, it all of a sudden dipped down to 0. Reason for that is simply the COVID crisis, so we didn't take any pilots in that year. But you can see in 21, where we basically took a lot of pilots back, that is where we took the Pilot Academy graduates in, of course, as well. Here comes another question for you. In how many years can a pilot become a captain with the company? Now, I've mentioned that already before. It was in one of the slides. Yeah, it's probably a little bit too easy, isn't it? What should I say? I'll quickly move on, actually, because you've got it all right. We say 5 years. You have to keep in mind can become, simply because, first of all, it depends very much on a certain fluctuation which we have. It depends on the growth. It depends on many other factors as well. But that has been basically the time span which we have seen on our first officers developing. This slide always draws a lot of attention, and it is an important slide simply because you have to see all of this as a certain business plan as well, which you're going to pick up. It's an investment which you put down, and then of course you have to see what is the return of investment. Actually, you want to achieve a suitable living out of it, of course, as well. At the same time, you sign up for a loan program, and with that you need to pay certain things back. So this is actually quite important that you see what actually happens throughout your career development. You see then that that in the first year you make that jump, first of all, from being employed with the airline, completing your training, and you go into the FO1 level. That is where you will start paying back your loan. And you see in green highlighted the gross salaries which are achieved, and then in gray the net salaries. So that's after deduction of tax and any other social aspects and so forth. And you have to keep in mind here as well that these are average production. So if you fly a lot more, which is not always your choice, but if there would be more flights available and so on, you would be flying more, your income is going to be higher as well. There's a minimum salary which we always pay. It goes down to 60 block hours, so 60 flight hours, which you anyhow get paid, even if we only have 20 or 30 flight hours which we can offer for that month. Okay, good. Additional benefits. So in this industry we have certain benefits. First of all, it's unlimited home leave tickets. So if you live somewhere else, you need to fly there to get home. It's not really that you can commute on every, let's call it, weekend. But nevertheless, if you go back to where you're originally from, you get unlimited amount of tickets for that. ID leisure travel tickets. ID is the industry discount, and it goes for employees, for your parents, for your partner, so your spouse, and for your children up to the age of 24. And this means that you can basically, on this system, all sorts of airlines are connected to it, be it United or Delta in the US, be it Qantas in Australia, Thai in Asia. All big airlines are part of this ID travel system, and you can buy very cheap tickets. They are standby tickets nonetheless, which means that you get a seat if a seat is available. There are always in some way some remaining seats available, or nearly always. And you can travel around the world at a very, very low price. That's an advantage for us as airline staff. Paid vacation, 20 days per month. That would be great. Wow. What did I announce here? 20 days per year it is, of course, which means 4 weeks of vacation you have. So this basically consists of the working days. So that's the so-called Monday to Friday, and the weekend is off anyhow. All training, validation, medicals, visas, costs are covered by us. We pay for your medical and for your flight crew license once you're employed with us as a pilot. Loss of license. So if you should be amongst the unlucky ones who lose their license, in example, because they lose their medical, you never know how you develop over your working lifespan. And you might have a medical condition which comes up at some point, and you might lose that medical. With that, you can't. So the pilot license and the medical, they are connected. Your license, you are not able to use your license if you don't have a valid medical. With that, we have an insurance which would cover a 100,000 euro compensation if you lose your license. Sounds a lot. You've gone through a lot of investment and you've lost your job. So that income, and with that, 100,000 is very quickly in some way gone, so to say. Health insurance you get with us, accident insurance, that is of course included as well. Where do our pilot academy people actually really come from? Our students, where are they from? On the left side you see the European map. Those are the countries represented here at the moment. And on the right hand side you see Latvia and the different regions. So if you're Latvian, you can actually see if your region is covered here, or if you're going to be the first out of that specific area. Yeah, and then we're nearly closing into the end here. You can connect to us on all sorts of social media platforms, and you can reach us via these, of course, as well. We are available there. You can contact us. We are there to answer questions as well. Whatever kind of desire you have, these you can use. Excellent, cool. And then it's now up to you to post a question if you have any, and I'll try to answer them as good as I can. Quick remark on this one. So that's not an ice bucket contest. It is not necessarily even really cold water, but it is at least a shower. And that is something which most people are pretty happy to receive because they get it once they have completed their first flight on the twin engine. So there are of course a lot of single engine flights before. First flight on the twin engine. That's when you're back on ground, you get the water over your head and your second stripe on the shoulder. So I'll be back in a minute, and then I'll start answering your questions. So here we're back with your questions. You've posted a lot. I've been talking quite a lot before on that presentation, I recognize, and it's nearly 55 minutes into that time. So we will take it over into the next hour, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. I see that there are 37 posted now, so we'll just simply make the most out of it. If you, for whatever reason, all of a sudden don't find your question here anymore, we don't delete questions unless they are just simply duplicated. And then you should find the answer still in some way there. Then additionally, we will upload in the next days this session here on YouTube, and you can actually watch then this Pilot Academy online open door session again, and you'll surely find the one or other answer. And if you haven't got it there, as I mentioned before, contact us via social media and we'll try to get back with the appropriate answer. Cool, I'll dive into the first one here. First question is, you mentioned there is a 10% fee before taking the loan. Does it mean that I would have to pay 10% of the whole loan before starting of the second phase? No, that doesn't mean that. So that will be just simply included into the loan paybacks. Just that you recognize that we have separated what are actually the costs and what is then the administrative fee. But it will be put all in one, and then accordingly you have to pay it back then during your work as a pilot here later on. Second question, can I repay the loan faster after I start working as FO, or is it a rigid payment plan? No, it is not. You can pay this back faster, yes. As majority of the training will be held in Liepāja and not in Riga, how does the accommodation transport work? Will I have to rent something in both cities? In theory, you do. We do not provide accommodation in general. So whether you're in Riga or if you are in Liepāja, you will have to have accommodation there. We have, of course, we provide help in that sense. There are dormitories, there are very different places. It very much comes down to that people have very different choice on how they want to live. Some want to just rent an apartment, have a good time in the summer there at the beach in Liepāja, if they're not really engaged with flying, whatever that might be. So we leave this part really to the students, and it works actually very well. So no worries, we'll help you on getting that settled. If succeed and finally flying as an FO, how would the salary deduction of the loan be made, months percentage? That is a good question, and I actually don't have the answer. So what we recognize is that you need to live, that you need to pay your bed and bread and butter, and that you of course want to have something on the side as well. So the repayment is done in a way that it is a suitable thing. But a good point, and unfortunately I don't have the answer on that. With the continuous growth of the airline and the new planes coming in every year, what is the ratio of accepted candidates by the airline for the loan program? The ratio, okay, so you mean probably then when this review, the performance review, takes place after 9 months. So we've got a dropout rate there which is below 1%. It happens that every now and then that you recognize, or the student has to recognize, this is not for me, or I just can't complete the tests, whatever that might be. And then yes, you do have the one or other dropping out, but it is absolutely small. Is there a minimum employment time you must respect in order to give back the loan the airline offered you? Yes, you have to be with us for 5 years as a first officer. That is what the loan program would be set up for. So that would cover in some way a previous question to a certain extent. So that is at least 5 years that you would have to, or you pay it back earlier and you leave if you're not interested to work for us anymore. What are things a student pilot should get by on their own before the school starts? It's basically nothing. You just start up with us and we provide the material. You get an iPad from us, you get your uniform, you get everything which you need to get started with us. You don't need to bring anything along. The aircraft is equipped with earphones and so on. You don't need to have them for yourself. Don't even buy something like that, because later in the airline you will probably not be allowed to use that specific earphone. So don't do it. A good headset costs about €1,000. Don't buy that up front. You don't need it. How will the studies work? Will it be, an example, 9 months pure theoretical and the rest pure practical, or will it be mixed in between? Yes, it will be mixed in between as well. So the first part, these 9 months, are mixed. I mentioned that before in the presentation. First of all, you do all of your theory and you do 45 flight hours. They will be mixed as well. Whereas you will not have in the first week your first flight hour. So that naturally comes after you have a little bit of theoretical knowledge on what you need to do. But it is a mixture, yes. We are aware that, how to say, the amount of theoretical knowledge intake needs to be loosened up there with some practical hands-on. You have a big career path already behind you. How challenging it was to manage your time and have enough time for your family. Good question. That is something which pilots in generally have, which is a challenge for pilots. So you have people who work for companies who do long-haul flying. You're away from home for long times, then you come back and have a whole week off. Might be nice, but be out for 2 weeks is putting quite a strain on the family. If you are able to do that with an airline like we are, where you are partly out, but you are at home with a working day as well, that works actually quite fine. You have to look for your opportunities, and it very much depends on how you want to work. Do you want to work for a cargo airline? They only fly at night. Do you really want to sleep at daytime then? And so all these questions you have to sort out. I really recommend search a little bit on YouTube about how the pilot's life in general can be. Can I study with you and then go to another company with my license? What kind of question is that? I don't want to talk to you anymore. You want to study here and not work for us? Really? We have a great company here, and I would be surprised if you would not want to work with us. Nevertheless, a fair question in that sense. Yes, if you pay for it, you can pack your bag straight after your pilot academy time, so after you've graduated, and you could go flying with another airline. Yes, you can do that. From previous open days, we know that the bases in Vilnius, Tallinn, and Tampere do not actually have crews based there. Why are the crews not based there? How does it work? Valid question. So in Vilnius and Tallinn, those are the capitals of the Baltic states, our neighboring countries here to Latvia. We have a lot of Lithuanians and a lot of Estonians who basically live there. They do duties out of these cities. We have very intense flights out of there, and mainly those pilots actually get scheduled for those flights from there. So they work somewhat from home as well. Tampere is different. In Finland, we don't have, I think, any Finnish pilot who's at home in Tampere. So we rotate the crews in there. They stay there for 5 days in a hotel, and then they come back for their days off or for work here. That's the way it works there. Yeah. Do we have the opportunity to work at airBaltic during flight training, for example, as aircraft technician or cabin crew? Yes, you do. I mentioned that as well. Think back about the presentation on this timeline. 9 months, it's purely study and 45 flight hours. Then you get that performance review. We take you into the loan program. You'll have to work as well. And then whatever you've done before, yes, you are going to work 50% of that time, 50-50 with the learning. How many times per year do you recruit new students, and how many? So for example, if you have a new class in November, how many students will be taken on? The amount, I need some help here. I think it is 12 per class, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll have that in a minute. But very quickly towards how often we recruit, we have basically 4 courses per year, and it is a continuous recruitment process. So we have a look when that person would be available or interested to join, and because we can't get all the people in for one course when it comes to the assessments at once, it is a continuous process. And I just get the information here that it is somewhere around 16 people per course, somewhere around that. during the full duration of the course, do we have any time off, vacations or something to go back home? Do we have discounted staff tickets to do so while in training? So yes, you do have discounted staff travel. It's basically on this home leave principle, which you would be able to do. If you're from Vienna, we have direct flights with Vienna. On that route, you get tickets to then go home. Do you have vacation time? That's actually a very good question. So in somewhat, yes, there are certain areas which are, Christmas is a typical one, I just hear. So that is typically done. Otherwise, it is not that you get within an employment that you have 4 weeks and you can shift them wherever you like. That is not the case. So typically the public holidays, the bank holidays in Latvia, they get recognized, of course, there as well. You have to just recognize you're engaging on a voluntary education program. And with that, you actually really have to entirely dedicate all of your time to the studies. So vacation comes when you're fully employed then with us as a pilot. If I live in a country where airBaltic doesn't fly, how often can I see my family? And how family is compatible with not living, and how family is compatible with not living in Latvia? Thank you. Don't get the second part of your question there, but the first one first. If I live in a country where Baltic doesn't fly. So first of all, the home leave tickets are only on our network. So if you live in a country where we don't fly to, then you have to look for the closest route which we take. That one you get tickets for, and you can go back home. And then how often can I see my family? Yeah, no idea. That's up to you to organize that and which value that has to have for you. You have to be aware that if you live somewhere else and where the connections are difficult, that will be, of course, influencing significantly on how often you can see your family. How compatible is the issue with the family? I didn't really quite understand that. Why doesn't airBaltic offer a fully funded cadet program like some other airlines are doing? Well, there are barely any other airlines doing it. British Airways has just announced that they go into a fully funded cadet program. And yeah, if you're able to get into that program, it will be fully funded for you. We don't offer that just simply because that's not part of our business module. And it comes down to that you might not want to work here forever in a day. If you sign up for the next 50 years working for us, then we can surely fund your education as well. But normally people want to just move as well and so on. And with that, it doesn't fit into that business module. I've heard that the pilot's life length is a lot shorter than others because of pressurized air and lack of oxygen. Is it true? No, that is not true. Yeah, you will find pilots who unfortunately look for a seat on one of the clouds a lot earlier than others do. It is a rather strenuous job. You must imagine as well that radiation is a thing which has an impact on you. I wanted to pull a joke and tell you that I'm 84 now and I'm still alive, but that's not true, of course. So, but no, it is not as an exceptional situation. There is no risk, and it's definitely not, I have to quickly mention that, has nothing to do with pressurization and a lack of oxygen. That is absolutely not true. That is, you're unfortunately very wrong there. Hi, I am 17. I'm doing my PPL in France where I live. How will that affect the selection and entry process for me if I have a PPL? So you might get credited, William, we have to see where you are with that PPL and how you've conducted it, what kind of flight school, what procedures and things like that. You have to keep in mind this is not a modular program, but this is an integrated course, and we would have to see how we could credit that experience which you have. So that's an individual question. You have to just contact us. If one signs up for the PA assessment, is their training software, CBTs to prepare, like for Lufthansa, etc. No. come along, be yourself. That is what you need to do. If you are trained then to pass an assessment, what kind of assessment would that really be? And Lufthansa does not neither. The Lufthansa assessment is super strenuous, and you can prepare in a certain way, and they want you even to prepare on certain modules. Doesn't mean that with that you'll easier pass the assessment. They just see where you are with your engagement and things like that. But for us, no, that's not the case. A tattoo on the forearm, which can be covered with long sleeve shirt, should be a problem joining the airline academy. Have heard restrictions in other airlines. Yeah, then you haven't really followed us on social media, because we have gone out about a year ago where we have really boosted the appearance and the freedom of expression of our people. So we do accept certain tattoos. If you've got your face tattooed, that doesn't really go very well in the airline industry. If you've got a tattoo on your arm or your leg or something like that, not an issue in any way. How much time does it take from the moment you apply to the moment you know you are accepted? So the entire assessment process is somewhere in the range of 2 weeks to 2 months. That depends a little bit on you as well, and the process, and for which course we are actually looking for people. 2 weeks to 2 months, roughly, somewhere in between. Is the type rating included in the loan program? No, it is not. You'll have to sign a bond. A bond is something where you basically say, okay, fine, I get that training, it's airline sponsored, we pay for it, but therefore I'll stay over a period of 3 years. If you leave earlier, you'll have to pay back a part of it. That's a loan. What is the average cost of living in Riga? How to answer that? Very comparable to Middle European countries. That's basically it. If you research that on the net, by the way, you get actually really good answers. It's very comparable in the meanwhile. It used to be a lot cheaper, very comparable to a Middle European country. During the selection, would we have to take English, math, physics tests, or would it be enough to provide you with? No, it's not enough to provide us with any high school results. We want to have a little bit of a feeling of certain things. So you'll have to do the tests here anyhow. What is the average salary for 60 flight hours being an FO1? We've presented that on the previous slide. We will upload it to YouTube. Have another look there. What happens if you do not pass the airBaltic performance review? Then you will not be offered employment for the second part of the loan program. So you can either then pay for yourself, or you'll have to leave the program. That would be the opportunities. Again, not too many to whom that would happen. It would have to have a very specific reason. Either you're a real party guy and just don't want to sit down and learn, or it doesn't work for you. How does the Academy and Airline accept facial hair? We do. In the meanwhile, beard growth and so on is not an issue. Again, you represent the airline out there, and if it's some kind of weird, no, I should not say that, because we have different tastes and so on, so that's a very wrong word. But if it is a very exceptional beard which you grow, don't have any example, then that would not fit. But you can have a beard, it needs to be taken care of. How many times per week do the students normally have class, and is it a 9 to 5? It's something roughly like 9 to 5. Yes, that is the case. You must keep in mind there that you have to additionally study. You probably have to sit down at home additionally. After dinner, review a couple of things, prepare for the next day that might come on top. It's not a standard, and you might get along with 9 to 5. I wasn't able to do that, and most of the other pilots whom I know, they were not able to do that either. So you have to be aware that this is hard work to study and to become an airline pilot. In the future, could you host open days at a later time? A lot of your future pilots are now studying, including me. Yeah, good point. Or working. I do understand that. Therefore, we post it on YouTube, so you can review the presentation. You would not be able then to put questions forward. Yeah, I guess there are always times which are convenient for the one and not for the other, but it's a valid point, thank you. I already have flight experience, and starting from zero is too expensive. If I joined the PA for CPL-IR multi-engine, will you accept my application at airBaltic, or is it a no-go? So look at our website. We are taking in experienced pilots as well, so who have certain experience levels. And there you have to go onto the airline website and then to our career page, and there you can see that we do take people with experience as well. Why should I definitely work at airBaltic? Greetings from Germany. What to tell you now? I've been talking, I've got a dry mouth, I have put a lot of facts forward, and you ask me a question like that. First of all, because we're one of the best airlines in the world. Have a look how we appear in public. We are young, we are dynamic, we've got a fantastic spirit within the airline. Okay, I'm not going to stand here for another hour counting those things up for you. Have a short look. Out of interest, how come you don't offer an MPL instead of CPL, since the environment is portrayed as airline-oriented? It is not only portrayed, it is airline-oriented. MPL has a lot of restrictions in certain airlines, and you might have difficulties finding a job on the market if you just do an MPL. So we definitely didn't want to do that. With that, our decision has been not to offer that. Does airBaltic pay for the type rating? Is it a bond? Yes, there's a 3-year bond, I mentioned that already, and the type rating is paid for. So when we get employed by you, what are our job opportunities? You mentioned ground crew, what else? So you mean the employment basically after these 9 months? So it could be anything. If you're a certified technician, we definitely want to have you in our technical department. If you are a hairdresser, then probably we can't offer you a specific job because we don't have a barber shop here in the company. So it has to be something where you fit in here and where we offer a certain job. And then you could do just anything. It could be from an accountant to a specialist in flight operations, calculating flight paths, or whatever there might be. Hi. Are there height restrictions for airBaltic pilots? I am 160 tall. I had heard that one pilot academy has height restrictions from 165 to 2 meters. Yeah, there are height restrictions. So we don't have specific height restrictions, but it makes sense to introduce them. A 2.40 meter tall person can't really sit in the aircraft. The same as if you're 130 tall, then that would not work either. But otherwise, we are rather fluent and we don't want to put it down to a specific centimeter. Do having a SPL, EASA license, helps for the recruitment? It doesn't help. It helps you because you have already certain knowledge and so forth. But so it doesn't help with the recruitment. If you're good, we'll take you in if you have an SPL or not. How many hours per week on average are dedicated to attempting courses, flying and self-study? 60 hours maybe on average. Very much depends on you. The courses would go 9 to 5, as we've already stated. You could make it a 40-hour week. At any university which has a compressed program, the same as here, you will not get along with that. If we count with previous flight experience, can't that help to finish the program in less than 24 months? Any other factor that could help to achieve that? So in the regular program, it goes anyhow faster than 24 months. But we tell the people that they should just bring time along and that they should not have that plan. I need to be finished at 18 months because that might not work because of weather. It's not the aircraft available. We've got a good fleet. It is laid out for exactly the amount of pilots whom we have and so forth. Previous flight experience? No, not really actually. Can we have a paper with notes, formulas for the physics, maths? No, you can't. Come along, as I said before, if you're afraid that you can't deliver, well, then you're apparently not on the right level. I have to just say it like that. If I was rejected first time applying because in interview I was too stressed, will that affect my second time applying? It will be only affecting you if you are still in the same way stressed. If you were able to get hold of that issue and manage that, then not. So we're all stressed when we go to interviews naturally. Whatever we do puts our blood pressure up probably in a certain way. It has to be reasonable. If you have a non-normal situation in a flight, we need to make sure, we need to be aware that you will be able to deal with your stress level and manage the situation. You've got 150 passengers in the back. You can't have people who are too stressed. Maybe that is then not for you. I just have to say it like that. What is the typical roster for an FO1? How many days, hours shall be on duty? So, good question. Doesn't have anything to do with FO1 or FO3 or a captain. They're all roughly scheduled in the same ways. Depends a little bit on your scheduling inputs. We don't have a wish list, but we have a bidding system. You bid for flights and so on. Depending on what you do there, you have roughly somewhere around 11, 12 days off per month, and then the rest, naturally, you would be on duty. Studying aviation engineering will give me advantage in selection process? No, not really, because the selection process is not that specific that we ask you a lot of technical questions. The others would not be able to succeed. No, you don't have any advantage there. Do you provide free parking for your students? Yes, we do. The students have to pay for the PPL a sum of 15,000 and the rest is paid by the airline. Does that apply only to Latvian nationals or to all students? The thing we've showed here with the presentation applies to anybody who starts up with us. We don't make any difference on nationality there. Hello, I studied high school in Spain and high school here is 11 and 12 degrees. Is enough to apply with the marks of this two academic years. Thank you. Yes, that is sufficient, yes. Bit of a silly question, but it is maintenance done on site of the school, and if so, can the students go there and study the aircraft more in depth? Cool, good question, and not a stupid one or a silly one in any way. So we do maintenance on site, but of course we do it there where the aircraft are used, and that is not in the training center itself. So yeah, in theory you could do that. It is very much the question if that gives you a real advantage, because the study material is more generic, more general, and that is actually more what you need to complete the studies. It's not that you need to really know by heart every single screw on a Diamond 40 or 42 aircraft. But it's surely interesting to see. If you're a pilot, I've heard you have problems. If you're a pilot, I've heard you have problems with family. No, I don't. You're not at home most of the time with the family. So, like any other working environment, you need to be away from home as well. And we might be away more because we travel. And it might be that we fly for, a whole week from a different destination. So you might go, spend a week in a hotel, fly from there, and then you come home for the weekend. That might be the case as well. Yes, if that is a lifestyle which you cannot accept, you have to be home every day, don't become a pilot. That will not work. In the final interview, if I would be asked about my motivation to become a pilot, but I don't have any experience in flying, would it influence my acceptance? Two different things here which you mentioned. First of all, you get asked about your motivation to become a pilot. That's one thing. And yes, we do want to know, why do you want to become a pilot? If you say, yeah, well, because the salary is good, then that is surely a valid point. Is that enough for us to take you in as a pilot? Maybe not. But then it says here, but I don't have any experience in flying. Naturally, none of the Pilot Academy students come in for their assessments have any experience with flying. So of course it will not influence your acceptance. So I'll have a very short look at the amount of questions. We have 18 up here. I've overstretched it now by more than 18 minutes. So I'll do another couple of minutes there and we'll see how good we get through it, and then we'll have to unfortunately cut it off there. Okay? In a few words, what would you say to every applicant? If you've got a solid reason to want to become a pilot, you need to understand what that reason is. We get applicants, they really perform very well in the assessments and so on, run through the psychological assessments during the test, they do very well, but actually they don't really know anything about the piloting. Very questionable if you would be able to do that for X amount of years. Will pilot be needed in the future? Yes, of course. They're working on models where they have remote controls, remote controlled aircraft. Do you want to get into one of those? Me not. So yes, pilots will be needed in the future. What type? No. Does the theoretical training take place in Riga or in Liepaja? In Riga. What type of psychotechnic tests are you using for the recruitment? How can we prepare for them? Answered that question already. If I don't get into a group, how often can I try to get into another one? Yeah, you can basically retry. It very much depends on what we tell you what the issue is. And it might be that we then say, listen, you need to get hold of that and that and that. And it might take you 2 years or 3 years, come back at a certain point. You could try it maybe 3 times. I don't know. It needs to make sense, of course. We need to have a perspective that you will be able to change whatever didn't work for you. But otherwise, if you don't get accepted on one assessment, you can come back a year later. If there are any documents else that we have to include in the application part of CV, motivation letter, no, you don't. Can I apply for the academy if I had no physics in school from 9th to 12th grade? Yes, you can apply, and we'll see within the assessment where that goes. During working in the company, you said that there is an income. How high is it approximately depending on the job? It depends on the job, exactly like that. Could be from 2. Have a short look what wages are paid in Latvia. Is it possible to apply now for the April-September class? Yes. Is the February course already full? No. Is pilot job monotonous, something boring, the same? I can't answer that for you. I would surely not be a pilot if I would find it like that. So that is actually a silly question. I have a PPL, more than 100 hours of flight, type rating on a Piper, la la la. Can I continue with you to get ADBL theory and other skill? In theory you can. That's so specific, you have to contact the administration. How important is your grades from high school in order to get accepted to join the pilot academy? It is an influential factor, but it's not decisive. What's the performance review at the end of the first month? I've elaborated on that already. Referring to the answer to the PPL student from France, how to get in touch with you for the questions about accreditation and so forth. Well, hey, social media and so on, we've got our contacts everywhere, okay? So I'm a lot older than you probably, but I do know how to contact the company. How many students are currently in PA21? Ooh. For February. The course is not quite full. I'm not quite sure. I think it might be 12 now. I'm not quite sure. Sorry, missed your presentation. In 50 years, is 50 years old? Oh, now I understand. So you're 50, and is it now too late to start a pilot training? In theory, not. It is super strenuous, and 50, going back to school, starting to learn and things like that. I can't judge where you are with all of that. In theory, it is not. So if you're really interested, just apply, see what happens. Cool. This, and we made the last questions actually really good. I got a cut-off signal here at past, so we just managed that perfectly. Great. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you did get the information you were looking for. I hope you got the insights. I hope you got questions answered. You got a little bit of details to see if this is something for you. This is, of course, the specific on the Pilot Academy program and on the employment later with the airline. You have to have your baseline of interest in the job. That needs to be in place. Otherwise, forget about that. If you haven't put that up now, then that will not be sufficient for you to be able to work in an industry, in a job for the next 30 years or something. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd like to hear from you, and we very much hope that this has been just right for you to proceed with your decision. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.